They walk into the room like they own it, but you already know the truth. The nerves behind the confidence. The calculation behind the smile. The fear hiding just beneath control. This isn't guesswork. It's strategy. Machiavelli believed human nature was a system, not a mystery. And once you learn to read that system, you stop being surprised by people. You start predicting them. One glance, one pause, one shift in tone, it's all there if you know how to see it. In this video, you'll learn how to decode power games in real time, how to use silence to extract truth, how to spot insecurity masquerading as dominance, and how to trigger reactions that reveal far more than words ever could. Because true control doesn't come from force, it comes from perception. And once you master that, no one can hide from you again. Start with their silence. Most people chase words, but the real data lives in hesitation. That first pause between stimulus and response is where the truth leaks out, not in what they say, but in how long it takes to say it. Are they thinking or calculating? Cautious or concealing? Stay silent just a moment longer than they expect, and they'll rush to fill the gap. What comes out isn't polished, it's raw, revealing, and often dangerous. Most people fear awkward silence. Machiavelli turned it into a weapon. Next, watch how they respond to perceived power. When you meet someone, don't just hear what they say, notice how they behave. Do they seek validation, try to impress, subtly challenge, or ignore you until others show respect? This reveals their inner hierarchy. Machiavelli didn't ask if someone respected him, he watched whether they respected power. That single distinction shows whether they can be influenced, or whether they'll resist, even when wrong. And if you want to know their worldview, don't look at how they treat you, look at how they treat those with nothing to offer. Then, test their stability. One small disruption, a sudden topic change, a subtle disagreement, an unexpected tone shift, is enough. If they tense up, over-explain, laugh too fast, or deflect, you've seen their pressure points. Because people don't reveal themselves when they're talking. The real magic begins after the conversation ends. Most people rehearse their words, posture, and tone to make the right impression, but Machiavelli waited for what came after. That's when the mask slips. Watch where they go when they think no one's watching. Who do they seek out? Who do they avoid? That tells you everything about their loyalties. Even if you can't hear their words, their body will speak, especially when your name comes up. And when you leave the room, their glance, or lack of it, reveals whether they're still thinking about you, or trying to forget you. Either way, you've found your position in their mind, or in their blind spot. And that distinction determines your next move. Machiavelli never tried to change people, he read them, then adapted. Loyalty was rewarded. Threats were monitored. Weakness was used. Because true mind reading isn't about understanding intent, it's about predicting the next move. And the most accurate prediction comes from one thing: fear. Everyone has one: rejection, irrelevance, betrayal, exposure, and if you watch where they overcompensate, you'll see it. The name dropper fears being overlooked. The interrupter fears being invisible. The micromanager fears being outshined. The oversharer fears being abandoned. Machiavelli hunted for these tells immediately, because once you identify someone's core fear, you don't just interpret their actions. You control them. Someone can look confident, composed, untouchable, until you mention someone else's success. Watch closely: a dip in energy, a flicker in their eyes, a subtle shift in posture. That's the tell. Their fear isn't failure, it's being outpaced, replaced, forgotten. So if you want to test their loyalty, don't confront them, introduce a rising figure into the room and observe. Fear will always reveal betrayal before it's acted out. Machiavelli didn't waste time trusting people, he studied them until trust became unnecessary. Once you've seen their silence, their instincts under pressure, their loyalties, and their core fear, you don't have to guess what they'll do next. You already know. You've read their mind, and they don't even realize it. But here's the trap: never show your hand. The moment they sense you've figured them out, they won't change for the better, they'll just become harder to read. And the unreadable are harder to control. So stay quiet. Watch. Adjust. Don't rush to punish. Don't rush to praise. Because the second mind you must master is your own. Reading people isn't the goal, it's the gateway. Because once you understand someone's internal script, you stop reacting to their behavior and start rewriting the story they think they're in. This is the level Machiavelli operated on, not to empathize, but to reshape. He read people to guide them subtly, designing environments where they changed themselves without ever realizing it. Picture a room where you've already read every face: who's insecure, who's ambitious, who's seeking validation, who's a threat. You don't confront. You don't explain. You plant cues, shift tone, withdraw attention, and they move like pieces on a board, believing it's their idea. This is guided perception. People feel in control, but their choices are shaped by the fears you've identified. Someone terrified of irrelevance? You can feed their ego until they implode, or starve it until they unravel. Either path leads to the same outcome: controlled collapse. And the beauty of it? They'll never trace it back to you. Because true power isn't force, it's silence. You don't fight them. You let them self-destruct inside the patterns you've already mapped. But power like this only lasts if you stay invisible. Never reveal what you've seen. People don't want to be understood, they want to be believed. Expose their mask, and they'll retreat or lash out. Keep it hidden, and they'll keep leaking truth, never realizing you're steering the entire game. This is what Machiavelli did with kings, nobles, soldiers, and spies alike. He played the long game of quiet insight and strategic timing. Let's go tactical. You're dealing with someone who dominates every group conversation. You already know the root cause: a fear of insignificance, fueled by constant need for validation. So what do? You give them a taste of control, a brief, polite compliment, then shift attention elsewhere. Not to attack, but to destabilize. They'll sense the spotlight fading and push harder, interrupting, asserting, overreaching. You say nothing. You let the room notice what they've become. You didn't challenge them, you let them unravel themselves. That's polite dominance. And it begins with one accurate psychological read. Machiavelli didn't rely on charisma, he relied on positioning. Silent, precise, invisible. Most people fail because they move too fast. They read someone, then rush to expose them. But exposure is ego. Strategy is patience. Your job isn't to prove you're right, it's to make sure they behave exactly as predicted. And when they do, you say nothing. You just shift your next move, and let the story play out. Because true insight isn't just about seeing someone's fears. It's about identifying the lie they live by, the version of themselves they're performing. The detached man craving approval. The independent woman seeking validation. The loyal leader ruled by insecurity. Once you see who they wish they were, you have two choices: break the illusion, or keep it alive just enough to make them chase it for your benefit. People don't betray who they are. They betray the mask they're trying to hold together. Machiavelli used this constantly, praising loyalty to reveal traitors, feeding ambition to expose envy, offering comfort that slowly disarmed his enemies. He didn't read people for insight. He read them to take control. You're not here to impress anyone. You're here to understand them so completely, they stop being unpredictable. Because when you read someone like a script, you stop reacting and start rewriting the ending. And no matter how dominant, charming, or dangerous they appear, you've already seen their next move. You've already planned your counter. You've already won. reading the average person is useful. Reading the powerful is essential, because when you're dealing with high-status individuals, leaders, influencers, manipulators, they've already trained themselves to look unreadable. But Machiavelli would remind you, no one is unreadable, only more skilled at misdirection. And the better they are at masking their intentions, the more rewarding it is when you uncover them. Reading the powerful gives you disproportionate leverage, because they influence others. And if you can predict their moves before they make them, you don't just survive the power game, you bend it in your direction. When someone walks into a room and owns it, whether through charisma, posture, or silence, most people respond emotionally. They try to compete, impress, or freeze. Machiavelli never did that. He didn't try to steal power, he studied it. Because truly powerful people leak more information than they realize, not in weakness, but in the pressure they put on others. So if you want to read them instantly, don't look at them, watch how others change in their presence. Who becomes submissive? Who becomes performative? Who overcompensates? This tells you everything about the alpha in the room, because a powerful person's mind is reflected in the behavior of those orbiting them. If the people around them act with fear, they rule with intimidation. If they act fake, they rule with charm. If they act like sycophants, they rule through rewards and insecurity. Each style has a weakness. Each one reveals a vulnerability. Machiavelli's genius was identifying not just a leader, but the method by which the leader maintains control, because when you see how they rule, you see how they can be replaced. High-status individuals often hide behind a wall of strategy. They speak in generalities. They smile through betrayal. They withhold their real thoughts unless there's leverage to gain. To read their mind, you don't listen to what they say, you look for where they break protocol, when they forget to play the role perfectly. You don't read powerful people when they speak, you read them in 3 precise moments. First, when control slips. An unexpected comment, a joke they didn't anticipate, a silence they didn't plan, that's when their mask cracks. Don't look for emotion. Look for the twitch, the delayed reply, the subtle redirection. In those micro-reactions, their real priorities surface. Second, when they give praise. High-status individuals rarely compliment without purpose. Are they rewarding actual skill, or obedience? Are they lifting you, or isolating someone else? Pay attention to the timing, the wording, and who's in the room. Appreciation, in their hands, is a tool, not a gesture. Third, when they go quiet. If someone who's been dominating suddenly falls silent, they're not disengaged, they're recalculating. Don't fill the gap. Match their stillness. Watch their eyes, their posture, their subtle shifts in focus. Because silence, for them, is a pivot point. And if you can read the pivot, you can read the next move. You're in a meeting. A high-status figure starts dominating. You don't confront. You ask a short, calm question, what would you say is the one thing we must absolutely avoid? Now you watch, not for the answer, but for the hesitation. If they stall, they're not sure. If they generalize, they're hiding uncertainty. If they deflect, they're avoiding vulnerability. Whatever path they choose, you now know what they're not prepared to face. That's the crack in the armor. And Machiavelli would never strike right away, he'd log it, wait, let them forget the moment ever happened, and then later use it in a moment where control is up for grabs. Because that's the real use of mind reading at the highest level, not to win small arguments or gain superficial favors, but to subtly position yourself so that when their influence collapses, you're already standing where they thought you'd never be. And you didn't get there by shouting. You got there by watching, by waiting, by reading and remembering. Machiavelli wasn't obsessed with being liked. He was obsessed with being inevitable. And if you want to reach that level, you must learn to read even the unreadable, without letting them know you're watching. Because the moment they feel you see through them, They will either try to destroy you or try to recruit you. Your job is to accept neither. Your job is to remain unreadable yourself. Because the only person more powerful than the mind reader is the one who knows how to vanish after the reading is complete. You've now mastered the Machiavellian method. You know how to scan a room, how to sense the weakness behind dominance, how to pick up the invisible tells that reveal someone's internal script before they even speak. You're no longer the person trying to understand people, you're the person no one understands. You've become unreadable. And that is where the real power begins. Because if Machiavelli taught one truth above all, it's this: he who masters perception, masters reality. Most people live on the surface. They listen to words, react to tone, and believe what's presented, because they lack the patience to study what's real. But once you've trained your mind to pierce the performance, you're never at a disadvantage again. Now it's time to make your insight invisible. First, mask your awareness. The greatest mistake you can make is showing someone how clearly you see them. Because the second you reveal what you know, you trigger one of two responses: they'll begin manipulating you with even more effort, or they'll fear you and become unpredictable. Both create unnecessary chaos. So you must adopt the ultimate discipline: let them think they fooled you. Nod at their lie. Smile at their manipulation. Pretend not to notice the overcompensation. And while they believe you've fallen for it, you quietly adjust your strategy, your positioning, your leverage. Machiavelli didn't punish liars. He used them. Because once you know someone's mask, you can predict every move they make while wearing it. Second, speak just below their level of perception. Never meet someone at their sharpest, never expose your full intellect. Instead, speak half a beat slower, ask slightly simpler questions, use one layer of subtlety below their suspicion threshold, because people relax when they think they're smarter than you, and in that relaxation they leak everything: their ambition, their fears, their plans, their weaknesses. This is the Machiavellian mind at work: not loud, not brilliant, not flashy, just sharper than expected, and by the time they realize it, you've already moved past them. Third, use one detail to control the entire narrative, because a skilled mind reader doesn't need full information, they only need one accurate detail, something specific and unseen, whether it's a fear the person thinks is hidden, a contradiction in their values, or a pattern they believe is subtle. Once you've spotted it, you build your language around it quietly, you drop a phrase, you suggest a concern, you let them overhear a misinterpreted observation, and now they're spiraling, trying to figure out what you actually know. That's psychological control. You didn't threaten them, you didn't analyze them, you simply planted doubt, and doubt is the most efficient weapon in power psychology. Fourth, disappear when you're most remembered. This is the step no one wants to take, because once you've entered someone's mind, once you've seen who they are behind the act, you must leave, not permanently, but strategically, creating a psychological imprint by timing your absence precisely after the moment of insight, after they open up, after they mess up, after they show their fear, and then you step back, not coldly, not obviously, you simply become less available. Why? Because people obsess over the moment they were seen, and when the person who saw them vanishes, they attach to that memory even harder. They think about what you saw, what it means, what you're doing with that knowledge, and suddenly you've become the voice in their head, not by force, but by withdrawal. Machiavelli didn't dominate by being present everywhere, he dominated by being remembered where it mattered. Finally, close the loop and read yourself. You've read everyone else, now turn the method inward, because the only way to remain unreadable is to understand how you leak information without realizing it. Ask yourself, when do I overcompensate? What do I fear others seeing? Where do I betray my image through small behaviors? Because your enemy will look for these, and if they find them, they'll have the same leverage you've used against others. So you must become your own Machiavelli, not just the lion who commands the room, or the fox who sees the trap, but the one no one sees coming. The invisible strategist. The quiet observer. The one who doesn't fight for power, because they've already positioned themselves to receive it. You don't need to confront anyone. You don't need to expose them. You don't even need to correct them. You just need to see through them, fully, coldly, quietly. Because once you do, the game tilts in your favor. You stop chasing. You stop proving. You start walking into every room knowing exactly who's real, who's dangerous, and who will collapse under the weight of their own performance. That is Machiavelli's final lesson: if you can read them, you don't need to fight them. And if you can read yourself, no one can fight you. If any part of this made you realize who in your life is wearing a mask, like this video. And if you've spotted their tell, drop it in the comments. Let's compare notes.